Kubernetes makes it easier to deploy, scale, and manage applications. But it's not a PaaS. It's more of a foundation for building PaaSes. In fact, OpenShift v3 was co-designed and co-developed with Kubernetes, and other PaaSes like Deis have ported to Kubernetes as well. So you could run your application on a PaaS on Kubernetes, or you could build your own custom PaaS on Kubernetes, or get along just fine with no PaaS. If you package your application in Docker containers, you can deploy it very easily on Kubernetes.
And you keep saying PaaS. Just want to make sure our audience is aware of what that means.
Platform as a service. Generally, a platform as a service system would make it easy to push code that then gets built and deployed and running in production.
Okay, what's your relationship to the project?
I've been working on the project from the beginning, and previously I worked on similar internal infrastructure at Google. There was the Borg project, which we use internally to run all of Google's applications like Search, Gmail, Ads, and so on. And a follow-on project to that called Omega, which I founded. And so Kubernetes, when we were discussing starting an open source project, made a lot of sense for Google to have its engineers who are very familiar with its internal, what we call cluster management systems, to work on Kubernetes and transfer our expertise to that project.
So is Kubernetes built from the ground up, knowing it was going to be an open source software, or was it sort of an adapt? Okay.
Yeah, it was built from the ground up, and that influenced some of the choices we made. For example, the choice of using the Go language to write the software.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you for more architecture stuff, but Tim, I also want to talk to you and ask you, what's your relationship to the project?
Like Brian, I worked on our internal cluster systems, Borg and Omega, before. When we were having a summit with our internal teams and our cloud teams, and this topic kept coming up, and it seemed like such a good idea we couldn't not do it. So Brian and I were part of the original team that helped get this project off the ground.
Very cool. And so what is, can you describe then sort of, okay, so I kind of know what it's accomplishing for me, but how am I approaching it? What am I seeing when I'm entering commands or looking at GUIs and stuff? What does it actually manifest as?
Sure. Well, you mentioned that you and your clients are using Docker. You can't get too far into Docker space before you realize you need some help figuring out what machine am I going to run this Docker container on? What happens when the Docker container dies? How do I pull a new version of the Docker container? How do I grow the number of replicas that are serving this website? And you add all those things together, and they present a real problem, and that's the problem that Kubernetes tries to solve. Today you interact with it primarily through our command line. So instead of saying Docker run my command, you say kubectl create, and you give it some YAML that tells the Kubernetes system what to instantiate, which then goes off and picks a computer from your cluster, schedules the job onto that, schedules the job onto one of the machines in your cluster, manages it, keeps it alive, gathers logs, looks at statistics, those sorts of things. And then you can say kubectl get on those objects, and you can see the status.